I was out walking a couple of days ago. Old guy's got to keep this exercise thing going. And two young women walked past me, and I heard one of them say, "You can't say that, he's your friend." And I was immediately engaged. I didn't hear any more of the conversation, but I wondered what the young woman she was talking to might have been going to do. But I also wondered how that woman felt about her friend having such a clear view about how she should behave, because that's going to affect the relationship between them, isn't it? And difficulties in relationships are what engages us in story. So every story that you tell and every scene you do is going to be driven by relationship. Now, what you want to do with your first line in every scene is have the same effect on your audience as they had on me. You want to instantly engage them with the difficulty, because it's the difficulty that's driving the story. And what I want to explore in this, the 29th Talking Acting, is that the difficulty is always driven by your skill at being externally focused and active. It's those two elements of your choices that make you engaging for the audience. And there are lots of ways that actors slip into not servicing those two fundamental key elements. One of them, for example, is that actors will often drop the ending of lines. And what happens is, if you drop the ending of a line, you're telling the character that you're talking to, but also the audience, that the point that you have just made is not really important. So you've immediately taken the conversation energy out of the scene. So it's imperative that you keep endings up to keep that sense that the conversation contest is moving forward. And the other thing that happens when you drop endings is that generally what you're doing is becoming internally reflective about the complications of what you're saying. And anything that you do that takes you internal is going to reduce audience engagement, because although they can see that you're thinking, they cannot see what you're thinking about. It's your actions, it's the process that you follow as a result of what you're thinking that reveals with clarity your real intent. So we need to avoid being internally focused. And as soon as we become internally focused, then the impulses become inactive, because they're not focused on the other person, they're focused on you. Now, another circumstance under which I have recently discovered might have you leaning to being internal, and often those choices are not illogical, it's just that they're not productive. If a character in the scene says to you, "You've never done that before," or "You've just made it twice as hard," or "You've made it twice as big," or "twice as small," if they're making some judgment about the thing that you've done, then often you go internal to assess whether their judgment is right or not, and how you feel about that. It's not illogical. But what that means is that the line that you deliver in response is going to be a fact. It's going to be an explanation. It's not going to be, well, more than likely, not going to be actively driving your role in the conversation forward, because it's become internally focused. And so it's probably going to be less active or inactive. is often the case. But if you've responded to that line, you've never done that before, with a tacit nod of agreement, then you are externally focused and you've simultaneously made that assessment of whether they're right or wrong or not. But you're now actively engaged, and so your response is going to step up because it's focused on them to move your conversation forward to deal with the difficulty in the relationship. So those sorts of lines invite you to go inside and think about it. But if you actively assess the behaviour of the other character, like, yeah, you're right, or maybe you're right, or no, I don't think you're right, but then you're driving the difficulty in the relationship forward. Those moments I call yes, no, maybe moments. They're the moment where our mind instantly goes, yes, that's right, no, it's wrong, or maybe I'm confused and I can't tell. And if you watch conversations in life, you will see that those moments of physical manifestation of your intent frequently, or the person you are watching intent, frequently occur in advance of the words. They're really impulse-driven. Now, another circumstance under which you often, or actors often, go internal is that when you're confronted with a dilemma, so if you're faced with a situation where the other character's behaviour is different, erratic, is changed, and you're have to say lines like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry, or I don't know whether to be impressed or concerned. The dialogue is leading you towards thinking about the complications and the negatives that might be coming out of that. And often you go internal to assess how those things balance up. And what you need to be thinking about, or practicing working on, because these are habits that you need to encourage, is how to stay externally focused and active. So one of the things about dilemmas when you're presenting with them is that they're two opposite forces, aren't they? That's why it's hard to choose between them often. And so inherent in a dilemma is some irony, like you could go about it that way or you could go about it that way. And when we're aware of the irony in things, then our sense of humour is going to be part of the mix. And so if instead of going inside and thinking, I don't know whether to laugh or cry, if I go, if my focus is external, I go, I don't know whether to laugh or cry about that. So my sense of humour is there. But the problem hasn't been diminished. Then suddenly the line becomes more active, and it's going to drive an active response from the other character. Because that's the other factor, isn't it? Is that if you're internal and inactive and sit down, then they don't have to particularly step up. And so together you're bringing the dynamics of the conversation down. So have a think about that, because it's easy to let difficulties and rational thoughts take you internal and inactive, when what you need to be doing is using those difficulties to stay externally focused on managing the relationship with the other character, which is going to drive story forward and generate increasing levels of difficulty. I will be talking acting Same time next week. Cheers. If you have a question about this unique approach to acting process, you can email me, richard@rehearsalroom.com, or download the ebook. It's free too.